Welcome, everyone. It's really exciting to have this opportunity to connect with everyone at NLCP and set us up for another successful semester. We are in 2021, and we all know that the year 2020 presented us with so many challenges. It really pushed us. It made us rethink a lot of things. We had to rethink the way that we do school. Even now, taking the time to record a message for you guys so that it can be seen asynchronously and synchronously. So we still overcame the challenges that we were faced with. And as we go into 2021, we want to do all we can to make sure that our entire school community has the information necessary to succeed. So we're going to talk to you today about things related to your character, your goals, the reason our organization exists. And ultimately, we want you to build and strengthen yourself so that you're successful here, successful in college, and successful in your lives in the future. We have a playbook, much like a sports team. Have any of you ever participated on a sports team? Right? There's a playbook. I know my son has had to be on a football team in Pop Warner, and he had to read that playbook and learn the plays so that when the coach called the play on the field, he could run it out, right? At NLCP, we have a playbook. We have a playbook that guides us and identifies us as an organization. It talks about why we exist, and we exist to create transformational leaders. What is that, you might be asking? Transformational leaders are you guys. So ultimately, we want to work with you in this context, build you up as learners, build you up as future college grads who can someday come back to your community and pay it forward. Maybe it will be in education. Maybe it will be in law. Maybe it will be in politics. We don't know. However, you can't transform the community without first going through this process of transformation yourself. So that is why we exist. And ultimately, it's our goal to equip you with the skills necessary, the academic skills, the mindset, the behavioral skills necessary for you to succeed in your lives. We are preparing you for college. Make no mistake about it. That is the work that we do. That's what we specialize in. And thankfully, we have many examples at our campuses of graduates of North Lawndale College Prep living out this purpose, who have walked this walk and can give you a firsthand testimony about what it was like when they were in the seats that you're in, how they thrived and made it through the journey that is college, and what brought them back to contributing or decided to be a part of transformation in the North Lawndale community where they came up. So what we want for you to be mindful around is it's important for us all to be on the same page, right? In order for us to be rowing in the same direction, as we like to say, as it relates to our teamwork and the work that we do as a staff, we need our students to be able to understand what direction we're headed in, right? I remember being a little girl at camp, and we had to do this rowboat project on a team, and it was a complete disaster, you guys. And the reason why was because everyone was doing their own thing. Everyone was rowing, different timing, different paces, different strengths, different speeds, and we were not going anywhere. In order for us to move forward and accelerate and accomplish the goals that I'm talking about, we all, staff, students, parents, we need to be rowing in the same direction. Now, this is a question that I hear a lot from people. Is college really necessary? Why do I need to go to college? And I will say and say again, college is necessary. It's great. It won't hurt you. It's good for everyone. No matter what you tell me your goal is for your future, I will say college will help you with that. Understanding the basic level, the standard level skills around math, reading, writing, and then specializing in an area is going to give you a better footing. And I'm not just saying that because it's my opinion on my positions. There is tons of data, right? The best predictor of life expectancy, like how long you will be alive on this earth, is years of education. So when we talk about college, it's much bigger than just whether or not I want to go or I want to be an entrepreneur. Because I will tell you, most small businesses, most entrepreneurial ventures fail. And they don't fail because the idea wasn't good or it's not a needed service. They typically fail because people who are managing the business don't understand the ins and outs of business, don't have a picture and a plan for the full scope of work. So if you're an entrepreneur or you want to be an entrepreneur, great. Go to college as well. Get a degree in business and help forward your success. And more than that, as African American people, and there's no need not to just call that out, we work in a community and in a school that serves predominantly African American children. Our history has shown us a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to reach the point where we could be educated. We were not always afforded that right. It was illegal for slaves to read. You could get killed learning how to read. And so for all of the people who have paved the way, who went before us, for all of the greatness we've yet to achieve, it is necessary for us to honor who we are and from where we came by becoming educated. Frederick Douglass said, "The road to freedom is paved with education." And while I may not be a slave, I can certainly attest to the fact that education changed my life. Education opened doors for me as an African American woman and once girl. So we should never sit in any room of learning, any institution of learning, and not recognize that we have a responsibility to ourselves, a responsibility to our families, and a responsibility to our race to take advantage of every learning opportunity put before us. When we look at what causes people to succeed, because that when you open the doors around college, there's this whole body of research and data around whether or not someone will be successful. Some people make it and some people don't. And I would be dishonest if I stood up here and just told you that if you want to go to college, that's all you have to do is want to go and you're going to succeed. Many people don't succeed at college, but the people who do have some things in common around their character. And so I want to lift those things up for you today and show you what you need to be building and growing. The great thing about this character set, right, that will accompany your ACT and SAT scores or your GPA, your grades, your attendance, this character set can be grown. So even if you don't necessarily understand these character traits or you don't have some of them, if you had to rate yourself, you would say, I'm not so good on that part. You can grow them, and we're going to grow them here. So I want you to join me in watching this TED Talk about the key to success.
When I was 27 years old, I left a very demanding job in management consulting for a job that was even more demanding, teaching. I went to teach 7th graders math in the New York City public schools. And like any teacher, I made quizzes and tests, I gave out homework assignments. When the work came back, I calculated grades. What struck me was that IQ was not the only difference between my best and my worst students. Some of my strongest performers did not have stratospheric IQ scores. Some of my smartest kids weren't doing so well. And that got me thinking. The kinds of things you need to learn in 7th grade math, sure, they're hard. Ratios, decimals, the area of a parallelogram. But these concepts are not impossible. And I was firmly convinced that every one of my students could learn the material if they worked hard and long enough. After several more years of teaching, I came to the conclusion that what we need in education is a much better understanding of students and learning from a motivational perspective, from a psychological perspective. In education, the one thing we know how to measure best is IQ. But what if doing well in school and in life depends on much more than your ability to learn quickly and easily? So I left the classroom and I went to graduate school to become a psychologist. I started studying kids and adults in all kinds of super challenging settings. And in every study, my question was, who is successful here and why? My research team and I went to West Point Military Academy. We tried to predict which cadets would stay in military training and which would drop out. We went to the National Spelling Bee and tried to predict which children would advance farthest in competition. We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We partnered with private companies asking which of these salespeople is going to keep their jobs and who's going to earn the most money. In all those very different contexts, one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. And it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. A few years ago, I started studying grit in the Chicago public schools. I asked thousands of high school juniors to take grit questionnaires, and then waited around more than a year to see who would graduate. Turns out that grittier kids were significantly more likely to graduate, even when I matched them on every characteristic I could measure, things like family income, standardized achievement test scores, even how safe kids felt when they were at school. So it's not just at West Point or the National Spelling Bee that grit matters, it's also in school, especially for kids at risk for dropping out. To me, the most shocking thing about grit is how little we know, how little science knows about building it. Every day, parents and teachers ask me, how do I build grit in kids? What do I do to teach kids a solid work ethic? How do I keep them motivated for the long run? The honest answer is, I don't know. What I do know is that talent doesn't make you gritty. Our data show very clearly that there are many talented individuals who simply do not follow through on their commitments. In fact, in our data, grit is usually unrelated or even inversely related to measures of talent. So far, the best idea I've heard about building grit in kids is something called growth mindset. This is an idea developed at Stanford University by Carol Dweck, and it is the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed, that it can change with your effort. Dr. Dweck has shown that when kids read and learn about the brain and how it changes and grows in response to challenge, they're much more likely to persevere when they fail because they don't believe that failure is a permanent condition. So growth mindset is a great idea for building grit, but we need more. And that's where I'm going to end my remarks, because that's where we are. That's the work that stands before us. We need to take our best ideas, our strongest intuitions, and we need to test them. We need to measure whether we've been successful, and we have to be willing to fail, to be wrong, to start over again with lessons learned. In other words, we need to be gritty about getting our kids grittier. Thank you.
So hopefully you were able to walk away from that and recognize that your success is largely determined by your mindset. It's largely determined by your decision that I'm going to do this thing and nothing is going to stop me. And I know that especially in 2020, There are lots of reasons, lots of excuses, lots of things that people could lift up, or you might lift up as reasons or obstacles that would prevent you from being successful. And I created this slide because these are all people who had some aspect of struggle, some obstacles that they overcame in order for them to arrive at the success we know them for today. So whether that's Chadwick Boseman, who recently passed away, it became apparent to all of us, though we did not know, he was struggling with stage 4 cancer while he did some of his best work that will live on as his legacy. He made a decision within himself that he was still going to give his best, that he was going to be determined to see it through. We have Barack Obama, who was raised by a single mom. Everyone knows the challenges of growing up in a single parent household. He still overcame that and rose to the highest office in the land. Malala, she's a young lady fighting for education for girls in her country. She was shot in the head and had to overcome that. Has a great book that she's written, The Other Westmore. That's a book that we read as a staff school community that talks about 2 young men who came from Baltimore, similar community, same name, but 2 different outcomes. And so that's a great book to look at what happens when your focus becomes education and people push you toward that end versus you are able to be pulled in or sucked into the many distractions and vices that are out there. Oprah Winfrey, when we look at Oprah, she overcame so many things in her childhood, from molestation, being lonely, being abandoned. She had to overcome pregnancy. The list just goes on and on. No one can argue with her success. So when we think about that set of character traits, these people possess those character traits. They are gritty. They know how to persevere and see things through. They want to learn. They seek to learn. They seek to improve themselves. They ask questions. They go out of their way. They are conscientious people who go after their work and do their best. When you think about Michael Jordan or you think about Kobe Bryant, anybody who is the best at anything will tell you that they had to take a lot of time perfecting their craft, practicing their craft. And whether or not they made it to whatever their goal was, the MBA, to college, to producing television, to owning a television network, they never stopped that intentionality along the way. Michael Jordan didn't say, hey, I'm Michael Jordan now. I'm the best to ever play the game. I can stop practicing now. I don't have to do anything. Or I have this God-given talent. I don't have to show up. That's not true. Those people go harder, work harder, practice harder, push themselves further than other people who don't have their level of success. And so I want you to be thinking about that. Think about that as it relates to your story, right? Whatever obstacles you're facing in your life, whatever's pushing against you as you push and try to come out of what the story might have been for a young man or a young woman coming from North Lawndale. What has to be firm and strong is your mind. You have to be determined. You have to decide your fate. You have to do your work over and over again until you get it at a level that is going to guarantee your success. I want to read a poem with you that I came across some years ago, because as we've talked about slavery, as we've talked about people who have faced obstacles, certainly we have come a long way from that time, right? And if those people were able to succeed, what can we accomplish as a group of people? What can we accomplish as a school? What can we accomplish as the North Lawndale community? What can we accomplish as members of the African American community? This is equipment. Figure it out for yourself, my lad. You've all that the greatest of men have had. 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes, and a brain to use if you would be wise. With this equipment, they all began to start for the top and say, I can. Look them over, the wise and great. They take their food from a common plate, and similar knives and forks they use. With similar laces, they tie their shoes. The world considers them brave and smart, but you've all they had when they made their start. You can triumph and come to skill. You can be great if you only will. You're well equipped for what fight you choose. You have legs and arms and a brain to use. And the man who has risen great deeds to do began his life with no more than you. You are the handicap you must face. You are the one who must choose your place. You must say where you want to go, how much you will study, the truth to know. God has equipped you for life, but he lets you decide what you want to be. Courage must come from the soul within. The man or the woman must furnish the will to win. So figure it out for yourself, my lad. You were born with all the great have had. With your equipment, they all began. Get a hold of yourself and say, I can. That poem is by Edgar Guest. And I really want you all to take notice of what it's saying. You are responsible for your future, and there is no excuse that is acceptable for your failure. And if you failed in the past, that's okay. All of the people that I showed you previously failed in the past. You know what? I failed, right? When I was just out of 10th grade, I got pregnant and I had to drop out of school. So I was a high school dropout. And one of the memories I remember most from that time is my guidance counselor coming to my house. And he was checking on me. You know how it is if you're truant, if you're not coming to school. And when I opened my door, he saw that I was visibly with child. And he said, he looked at me with this look of disgust. And he said, we thought you were going to be somebody. Even today, saying those words strikes something in me. Because when he said that, I knew within myself, I am going to be somebody. And I had to make up my mind that even though my situation looked hopeless and challenging, I grew up in poverty, grew up very poor. You name the crazy circumstances, it was happening inside of my house and outside of my house. I had a lot of reasons to fail. But I knew inside myself that when I got my opportunity to get back into a classroom, I was going to do well because I needed to set an example for my daughter that was going to be born. I needed to show her what she was capable of. And if I set the bar here, she would at least strive to get close, if not surpass me. I wanted to help my mom. That was another thing for me, watching my mother struggle, watching her cry, watching our lights go out, watching her deal with life by herself made me say, I want to get my education and get a good job so I can help my mom. And moreover, now that I'm older, we'll just say older. Yeah. Now that I'm older, I know that not only was it about my daughter, not only was it about my mom, but it was about all of you. It was about the students that I worked with over these 20 years that I've been in the field of education and being able to say to them, you can do this. You can do this. And I know because it wasn't easy when I started out. I know because I don't come from a perfect place. I know because I dropped out of high school. Just all the challenges, being able to minister hope and minister encouragement to people was a part of my going through those experiences myself. Beyond my students, there are staff members, there are young women that I know outside of this space who need to know that someone who looks like them, someone who came from where they came from, found success. So what I want you to do when this session is over on video, you're going to go back into your advisory groups and you're going to have reflections and discussions. You have to find your why. You have to find the thing that is going to push you. When I wake up every morning, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go, but it's not a matter of whether I feel like it. You won't always be motivated. That's just a reality. You won't always feel like it, but you can always be disciplined. Commit to your education. Commit to showing up for yourself. Anchor yourself in why you want to become educated and why you want to contribute or how you want to contribute in the future to your community, to your gender group, to anybody that you associate yourself with. And you then from there stay determined and see it through. Lastly, I'll leave you with one more poem. I really got carried away with the teacher stuff in me. This one is short though, and this is one you should memorize and know in your heart. At least, if not the word by word, you should know the message. Invictus. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced or cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. By William Ernest Henley. I hope that you all are able to benefit from this. I hope that you all can set your intention and your why and your determination to see this through and finish this school year strong.